Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, welcome to the latest episode. It is Tuesday, the 25th of November, 2025. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the latest episode. So, wherever you are in the world, you are currently being joined by listeners in 52 countries, which is just amazing. So, wherever you are, you're very welcome to join me this evening. Now, it's been another cold day, another cold week, not quite as bad as last week, but pretty parky, and I've had a lot of layers on. Now, the chickens are really funny in this weather because during the day they have this, quite a strict pecking order, and they're all quite mean to each other during the day. And then as soon as it gets dark and they go to bed, they huddle up so close to each other on the perch, and all of the feuds and the domestics and the dramas are all forgotten, and they just want to be nice and warm. Not that it's cold in their house, and they've all had a really good molt, so they're fine. It's just interesting how they behave during the evening as opposed to how they behave during the day. So I've been super busy with my online course, and you're probably not going to be surprised when I say I didn't get as much done over the weekend as I hoped to, partly because it rained all day Saturday and it was really miserable. And there's something about the wet and the cold which I find just deeply unpleasant. So I kind of skived off doing anything on Saturday. And on Sunday, I spent most of the day cutting the dog's hair because although it's cold, she has a lot of jumpers and jackets. Anyway, it's a long process. Um, anyway, I digress. This yesterday, I had an amazing conversation with a lady who is doing my online course. She's in the UK, and there aren't many of us from the UK on this course because it's done by an American lady. And we had a most amazing chat yesterday. It was so cool. And I thought it would be for like 10 minutes or something. And like 45 minutes later, we were like, okay, got to go and get on with some work. And we swapped stories and experiences. And it was amazing, like really amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing her in person next year. So my online course has been a lot. I'm still doing module 2, which is fine. I'm not behind or anything, but there's just a tremendous amount of work to do and lots of spreadsheets to fill in. And I thought I was the queen of spreadsheets, but I can tell you that Jenny Marks has beaten me on the spreadsheets. Like, she has got the most incredible spreadsheets. And a lot of the calculations, like the behind the scenes ones, have already been inputted, which is what makes, I think, the course so incredibly value for money. But still, it's a whole load of work just to compile all the figures together and work out profitability and all sorts of stuff. So that's what I have been busy with. Now, thank you if you sent me a message recently. I do love hearing from you, and it is me that replies back. Also, as a bit of I do have an exciting topic for you this evening, actually, but I just want to mention something very briefly because I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but about the whole perimenopause thing, which I have updated you with, and I've shared a lot about it on the podcast about my journey with you. Because it's been an integral part of my cut flower journey and how I've managed setting up the business and just who I am in my life right now. And the great news is, if you listen regularly, you'll know I went for a blood test a few weeks ago. Well, today I managed to get prescribed testosterone to help complement the estrogen and the progesterone that I'm already on. Now, this is not the easiest thing in the world to get hold of, um, but I'm very much hoping that it works. You have to be very, very careful how you apply it and where you apply it. You're not allowed to put it in the same place consistently. Otherwise, apparently, you get tufts of hair growing out of that spot. Don't let me put you off. I'm sure there are going to be some upsides to having it. I actually said to my GP, maybe I could put it on my head to stop my hair falling out. And she said, no, whatever you do, don't do that. So I just wanted to share it with you because I really, if I just, I mean, some people might say, oh, you're oversharing and oh, it's a cut flower podcast. We don't want to hear about your perimenopause journey. But I've had some very positive feedback about the things that I've said. I still don't think, and this is a very personal opinion, but I don't think there's enough of a dialogue about it going on. And I think there are lots of people out there who are just struggling, confused, and not really sure what is happening to their body. And if I could help just one listener out of everybody, just one person, that decides maybe I'll Google it, I'll ask for some help, for some support, I'll talk to somebody else, then I will take any criticism for oversharing, because my one non-cut flower tip this week is to be persistent with your GP, and to get help if you feel like you need it. Back yourself, don't give up, because you know your body and your mind better than anybody else. And I don't really think anybody should be trying to shut down conversations about perimenopause, because it can be absolutely brutal, and not for everybody. I don't want anybody to be alarmed. Everybody's journey is going to be different, but there's masses of information out there. It is possible to feel better in yourself. You don't have to accept the status quo. So that is me oversharing and preaching about that. I'm going to tell you about the exciting part of this episode, which is all about foliage. Yes, now I'm telling you this so that you can get ahead of the curve for next year. Foliage is really essential if you're doing retail sales, bouquets, or farm stands, and you need to bulk out your offering. So I was going to give you my top 10, but then I had more than that and I just couldn't reduce it down. So I am not professing to be the expert on foliage or on anything on this podcast at all. I'm very new to it. And when I went on a course years ago, I think this is like pre COVID, I went on a course run by a company called Plant Passion down just a bit south of me in the UK, run by a lady called Claire. And she did us like a tour of her field and everything. And she had beds and beds of foliage. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, yeah, I probably should do some of that. And then I started growing last year. Totally went out of the window. I was like, oh, focals, flower, color, this, that, and the other. Didn't do any foliage. Now, I didn't really need any last year, because this year rather, because I've been wholesale to this wedding and event florist mostly. But I did start selling beech and hazel during the year, and my wedding florist absolutely loved it, because she does these incredible milk churns outside various different venues, full of like towering stems, because I have some really big stems of hazel, and they just form the most perfect backdrop. And they also look, she also does these beautiful displays on top of sort of mantelpieces in country house hotels, and it's just like a wall of greenery, and then obviously all the flowers are over the front of it. But I mean, I was just wildly excited to see my hazel up on somebody's wall. I just thought that was absolutely wild. So I have been stocking up in the latter part of this year, and I thought I would run you through the ones that I am growing and why I think they're going to be useful, in case it's something that you might like to, I was going to say branch out into. That's terrible. Absolutely. Forget I said that. You might consider getting. So I've divided it into categories. I have got shrubs, herbs, fruit, vegetables, and flowers. So in the shrubs category, I have got Pittosporum, Physocarpus, beech, hazel, eucalyptus, and cotinus or cotinus, depending on how you say it. Now, the Pittosporum, I have actually dug an enormous one up out of my garden. They are quite expensive down the wholesalers, and I know they grow very quickly. So I think, well, that could work out value for money in a couple of years. But I had one in a silly place in my garden. So I have just dug that up and put it on the field. And the reason I love Pittosporum is because the the leaves are really very small and delicate. So you can have a one great shrub, but actually the stems can be really nice and delicate. They're not sort of fat. And the variegated ones are really quite pretty. So I can't remember the names of them offhand, but it might come to me later. But very pretty and evergreen, so that you can cut from them all year round, which is good value for money. Now, Physocarpus, I bought some of these recently. Don't know anything about them whatsoever. I think they're called nine bark in the USA. And I've heard lots of growers in all these other podcasts that I listen to talking about nine bark and Physocarpus. And I thought, oh, I've got to get me some. And they were wildly expensive in my wholesale plant nursery. So I ended up buying loads in the sale in my local garden centre. And they're smaller than what you would get in a proper plant nursery, but it doesn't matter, because they'll grow. And it doesn't matter if they look a bit straggly in the sales in the autumn. Their Physocarpus is deciduous. They're going to drop their leaves and they look like, they've had a really tough year and they just need a break, like most of us, I imagine. So as long as you can tell that the plant isn't dead, and it might be an idea to knock the pot off and just have a look at the roots as well. Make sure that they're not all spiraled around the pot, which you can remedy, like you can root prune them to reinvigorate the roots. But ideally, you want something that's not been sitting in a pot for ages and ages. So I've put two different types of Physocarpus, um, autumn gold or something like that, and Diablo. So fingers crossed, they look very pretty. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're like next year. Now, my stock ones this year have been beech and hazel. And beech has been a question of getting the tree loppers out and just gently and carefully pruning the um, the plants that are already in the field. And also, there was some hazel up there, and they got coppiced. I have to remember when I did that actually. Anyway, they got coppiced at the start of this year, and I've held on to all of the what do you call it? Well, they're not really canes, branches, if you like. They're not branch stems. I don't know. They're massive things. They're about 10 or 12 foot tall now. And I cut them all down and then painstakingly cut all of the branches off so that I could reuse the poles, or they're not poles, you know what I mean, the stems, or hire them out for events, or maybe a wedding or event florist would like to buy them for an event because they'd be absolutely perfect. But I obviously didn't do enough marketing on those because nobody bought or hired them this year, but they're ready for 2026 and they will be joined by the ones that get coppiced later on when I remember what time of year you're supposed to do it. Now, eucalyptus, I have bought baby blue. This apparently is the one that stays looking like the baby foliage all of its life. It does not turn into that Wumpfing Great Gunny Eye, one of which I have in my garden. I literally put it in there. It had the beautiful baby foliage, and then I turned my back for literally 5 minutes, and now it's 30 feet tall, and I can't reach any of the foliage, so I can't do anything with it. Like, it's too big to coppice it down now. It's just a flipping great tree. Which is fine because they bend in the wind. They're quite flexible and they're evergreen, so it can stay there. It's not a problem, but no good for cut flowers. So I've bought baby blue, and hopefully it is baby blue because apparently some of them get sold as baby blue when they're not. So we'll wait and see. But florists apparently love eucalyptus. I know they do because you see them in all of their bouquets and arrangements, and I love it as well. It's absolutely lovely. It reminds me of Australia, and it reminds me of being in the Greek islands in the summer because there's eucalyptus out there, just that gorgeous smell. And I love the colour as well. It's so pretty. And the final one on the list is Cotinus or Cotinus. Now, I have bought a very small plant. Again, he was in the sale and he was very, very cheap because he's tiny. But I have hopes for him. I love the colours of Cotinus. It's also known as smoke bush because it has those sort of smoky little yeah, I can't even describe it. Inflorescences, just gorgeous, gorgeous. Anyway, I think mine will probably never get to the point of flowering because it's very, very small, but I've added it to the list because I think the leaf color is really lovely. Now, in my herb section, I have got rosemary, oregano, and mint. The chickens have recently eaten all of my mint. Now, I put it in a pot very strategically. I bought it when I went down to Cornwall earlier this year. And it is do you know what? I should have really done some more research before I started this because there's what was it called? Something. Anyway, it's a really nice mint, and I bought a few of them and I've put them in a trough because you can't put mint actually in the ground or it will just take over and you will just completely lose control. So mint always, always needs to stay in a pot. It can go in the ground in a pot, but you have to make sure that the roots don't come out the bottom of the pot as well. So I've put it all in a trough and it's just on the terrace by Kylie's room. And I noticed the other day that the chickens have just eaten it all. So I hope that makes them feel better and they all have really wonderful, fresh smelling breath. But I will have to cut it down and hope that it regrows, which it should do because you know what mint is like. It's very vigorous. And the other herb that I really, really love using is rosemary. I just adore the smell of it. Don't like it in my food. Don't like it in cookery or anything like that. The bits get stuck in my teeth and I just don't like eating it. But I adore the smell of it. And I think it looks really beautiful in a bouquet. And I think there's something nice about putting fresh herbs in bouquets. I think it just adds another layer to it. Not that I am the expert on doing bouquets, as you will know if you listen regularly. Now, in the fruit section, I've got two here. I've got raspberry and rebase sanguineum, which is a flowering currant. Now, I picked the rebase up from the garden centre in the same sale, and I like the look of it because the currant leaves are very, very pretty. And then it's very early to flower, so you get these sort of dripping pink racemes of, colour coming down. Very, very pretty. And then the whole of the rest of the year, you've just got the foliage. The raspberry, I have just taken all of the canes from my garden and taken them up to the field, but they are not thornless variety. And I think that might have been a mistake, and they may have to move because I think the florists are not going to love having raspberry canes with thorns in. I have to say, I have never used raspberry foliage in any of my trial bouquets that I've made. I can't quite get my head around the fact that you would cut them before they'd flowered because I wait all year for raspberries. I love raspberries. And I can't imagine anybody cutting them without eating the fruit. But there you are, that's just me. Maybe I could eat the fruit and then cut the stems down. Now, in the vegetable section, I have put asparagus and fennel. I have fennel on the plot, and I think the fronds are lovely. And again, you get that aniseedy smell. Now, they're not very big unless you cut the actual flowering stems, which then they can go in arrangements, and they do really nicely actually. But I've done some bud vases with just individual fennel leaves on them, and they've been really pretty, really, really pretty. Now, the asparagus, I don't have any asparagus. And if I could do one thing, if I could go back in time 10 years, I would plant asparagus. I've had a number of attempts at it. It hasn't worked for some reason in my personal life. I've done it for work quite a bit, and the plants are fantastic. And I keep thinking, I can't believe I haven't planted any asparagus myself. So, whatever stage of life you are at, plant some asparagus because I don't think it's ever too late to plant asparagus. And some of the ones now you can cut maybe a small amount in your first year and then sort of a little bit more in your second. Like you don't have to wait 3 to 5 years for it. And once they've finished, once you stop cutting for the season, the stems obviously then turn into these great big sort of 6 foot tall, airy, light, fluffy branches, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I love working with those. They are really fantastic. Obviously, I do it with other people's asparagus, not my own. But yeah, you can get asparagus from all sorts of different places, and I think that would probably be a really interesting one to grow and cut. So it's on my list to actually get round to getting some. And in my final section, of the flowers section, I've put Achillea / yarrow. And I did cut some of this. Again, I cut some small fronds and used them in bud vases. And then I had some larger bits that I put into sort of posy sized arrangements. And the new fresh growth is really very pretty. It's a lovely sort of fresh appley green kind of color, but it's got that softness and that texture, which I really, really liked. So I can recommend them. And Achillea always makes it's like so much foliage. Like they're quite generous, so you can take quite a bit off there. And in terms of where to buy, now I've bought mine either from wholesale plant nursery or from garden centre sales. And I do think garden centre sales, you can pick up some real bargains. Now, that's probably only applies to people like me who buy small volumes. You obviously can't go down to Hilliers Garden Centre and buy 100 of something because they're not going to have that many in stock. But you can pick up some real bargains. I got my plants for like £3, I think, all of these shrubs, like just a crazy small amount of money to pay for these things. But you can be very lucky. And of course, the best time to get things in the sale is when they have just finished doing whatever they're doing. And the garden centre then needs to shift them for the next product that's coming in. So things like hellebores, which are very, very expensive because it takes them so long to get to that point, you can often get them at a knocked down price after the hellebore season is over. So it's well worth going into a garden centre once a month just to see what they are trying to get rid of, because I've get some good bargains in mine. And I guess you could grow some of these from seed if you have the patience of a saint, or you're in your 20s and you might have time to actually see them turn into something. Um, yeah, I'm not sure I would recommend those from seed, but you definitely could if you really wanted to. The other place that is always worth a try is online hedge plant suppliers. So companies that will sell you like 5,000 laurels or 60 meters of deciduous mixed British hedging or whatever. Those kind of places are great for certain types of shrubs that if you don't envisage them in a hedge situation, if you just buy them as like 2-year-old whips, it'll turn into a massive shrub before you know what's going on, because if they don't have the competition of being in a hedge, then they'll grow even bigger. So that can also be a very cheap way of doing it if you want to buy in any kind of scale. So I hope that is helpful. I wish I had taken advice about foliage, really taken it on board years ago, because it does take a while to get plants to a decent size that you can cut a decent volume off without ending up with like a 2-inch stump on the floor. And you do need to be careful when you're pruning that you don't over prune and prune them too hard, or you don't prune them at the wrong time and then you're not going to get any flowers the next year, or just reduce the plants too much. Obviously with eucalyptus, just keep pruning or you end up with a monster. So yeah, I wish I had started to acquire foliage a couple of years ago, really, and just sort of left them ticking over while I got the rest of it going. But then that's the beauty of hindsight, isn't it? Yes. So listen, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. And if you are listening in the USA, happy Thanksgiving for Thursday. Hope you have a wonderful holiday. And I do hope that you'll come back and join me on Friday for the next episode, or whenever it's convenient for you to listen to it. And I will have some more news for you then. So that's it from me. All the very best.